We have internal expectation and client expectation. And we tend to think that both expectations are the same, but they're not. And guys, increasing your team's capacity by 25%, like the example we just talked about, can increase your profit margins by 50, 60, 70%.
First and foremost, how are you identifying your client personalities, right? And we use something, we call it the 4 archetypes. It's doers, controllers, followers, and warriors. And there's a certain way to communicate and support each of those types of clients to help them move forward.
Those are the 3 core things and why onboarding is so important. Because if you understand the expectation, you make your clients feel certain and they have clarity on what the next steps are, the journey is all set for a great start.
Since we've made some of these changes, we're doing the same hours of work, but our energy is way better. It feels like we're not putting out fires everywhere.
Any expectation is a result of time and effort. So when your clients keep the same expectation, but for some reason, the level of effort is not there, we need to have that conversation with the client. There are 3 options.
Welcome to the Ethical Scaling Podcast, your guide to navigating online business with integrity. Join Jay and Ben on this epic journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the game, get ready for insights, strategies, and a dash of humor. So grab your favorite beverage, cozy up in your favorite spot, and get ready to deep dive into the art and science of ethical scaling. From client success to boosting lifetime value. Plus, learn how to turn clients into your best advocates. Ready to scale ethically? Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back to the Ethical Scaling Podcast. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the 2 key things that you need to actually effectively scale your business. And, we've been doing this offer for 3.5 years. We've worked with over 100 business owners in the high ticket online space. And there's 2 things. The first is systems and the second is psychology. All right. And now we're talking about fulfillment. Obviously we have a bias because that's what we do. But if you think about it, you guys are taught marketing psychology and systems. You're taught sales psychology and systems. But have you ever been taught fulfillment psychology and systems? Probably not. So Jay, you want to share with these guys like what we found on the systems and psychology things?
Yeah, if I boil it down to very simple terms, when you look at fulfillment from a systems perspective, we want to ensure we have something that is effective. As simple as it sounds, it needs to be effective. Basically, what I mean about being effective, your clients have expectations that come from marketing and sales, and we need to make sure we meet client expectations. That for me, it's enough to say, okay, my system is effective. And then when you play with psychology, that's when you add the efficiency part. Meaning that I know I can go from A to B with my clients. Now I want to be able to go from A to B either faster or with more volume, which connects with the growing versus scaling concept as well that we talk about a lot.
Well, and just yesterday we were having a conversation with one of our clients, right? And they were asking, about their upgrade percentage, and their target is 60%. This last month they were at 45%, which is really, really good. But we said, hey, wait a minute. So you guys have increased your capacity by 25% over the last few months.
4 months,
right?
3 or 4 months.
Yeah. So that's efficiency, right? And what I was saying to him, because you and I were kind of talking together in the background, was you can't work on effectiveness and efficiency at the same time, right? So these guys have dialed in the efficiency. They've increased their capacity. Now we can dig in more to effectiveness, right? So it's got to be one at a time.
And I think a small tweak we did with them, which I think is going to be important for every single listener, is to use the theory of constraints. I love the theory of constraints. Most people kind of heard about it. Let's make it very, very simple. Theory of constraints says when you have a system, there is always one or multiple constraints. You find one constraint, you fix the constraint by elevating the constraint, meaning that constraint is not there anymore. And then you find the next one and the next one and the next one, and you keep increasing efficiency. The problem with some business owners, in my opinion, and again, we go through the same every now and then, is the lack of patience. And they want to try to accomplish too many things at the same time. And that's an issue there. So for these clients, one of their goals was, can we increase our team's capacity? And guys, increasing your team's capacity by 25%, like the example we just talked about, can increase your profit margins by 50, 60, 70%, depending on, again, your conversions, your backend offer, how much it costs, how it's priced, what your team is delivering. But 25% is a lot. Why? Okay, first, there are multiple things here, but the first one for me, if your team is not working more to actually serve 25% more clients, you are able to scale. You're actually scaling now because you see that increase. But over time, when you're playing with a couple things, others might break. It's part of the process. Yeah. And that's why you're a business owner, because you're good with problem solving.
Well, and I think, again, to give these guys like a little more nitty gritty on systems, there's 7 key areas that we look at when we're talking about client journey, right? And that's the foundation of really what we do. We're not going to get into all 7, right? But the top 3 that I think we could talk about a little bit is onboarding, support, and tracking, right? Like if we just look across all of our clients, when we improve those 3 areas, they get the 80% improvement, right?
That's the effectiveness part. But let's give people a little bit more context why onboarding is important. So think about the whole process. That's the first typical interaction the client has with you after the sale. So basically what the client is trying to do, well, I made a decision, I'm unsure, possibly they're suffering from buyer's remorse. Can I actually confirm that my decision was good? And during that call, you want to give your clients basically 2 to 3 things. You want to give them clarity on what they should be doing next to actually accomplish what they want to accomplish with you. You want to give them certainty, because certainty will change perception of time. And I will save that for later, not today. But again, you want to make it feel like it's smooth and easy and frictionless. And then third, you have the opportunity to do expectation management. Those are the 3 core things and why onboarding is so important. Because if you understand the expectation, you make your clients feel certain and they have clarity on what the next steps are, the journey is all set for a great start.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when we look at support, one of the mistakes our clients and almost all business owners make is they might have that expectation conversation in onboarding, but then they never revisit it. Right. And even for us over the years, like we've gotten much better at, hey, these were the goals. Here's where we are. Here's what's coming next. Like it has to be an ongoing conversation, right? Because like with any human, they'll set a goal and then something might happen in their life. And then let's say they don't communicate that to the team. Their goal might have shifted because of something that happened. So the team's driving them toward the initial goal. The client's moving towards a different goal now because something changed, right?
That's very important for you to bring up, because we have internal expectation and client expectation. And we tend to think that both expectations are the same, but they're not.
Yeah.
Most of the times they're not. And your team might have an agenda, and now your client has a different agenda. And now we're not speaking the same language anymore. And that's the challenge here, is if there is no ongoing communication, you're going to face, like, I'm thinking about clients we've worked with. What are the 3 most common scenarios I've seen? The first one is the goal is not meaningful anymore. They don't want to accomplish that. Yeah. And that will trigger outcome regret. Basically meaning the outcome is not meaningful. I don't want to do the work because I don't want the outcome anymore. The second one is for high achievers, where they actually still want the goal, but they just keep moving the goalpost. So I wanted to make $10,000, but now I'm making 9. I want to make 100, and now I'm making 90, and I want 1 million. And they never take the time to celebrate and to acknowledge how much they have accomplished. And you'll see that when working with clients. Those 2 are very common. And the third one, I think, is the one you were talking about, is where they still want the goal, they didn't accomplish yet, but there is a lot going on. And I think that's the real expectation management, which is, cool, can we give our clients the opportunity to select their own adventure? And we talk about the equation on expectations, which I think is going to be important for us to talk about it. Any expectation is a result of time and effort. So when your clients keep the same expectation, but for some reason the level of effort is not there, we need to have that conversation with the client. There are 3 options. You keep the effort and you lower the expectation. You can increase the effort and you keep the expectation, or you can extend the timeline.
Yeah.
And I think that's missing in a lot of the online business space, is those conversations are not happening because, well, several reasons. The onboarding is not there. The support is not there. There's a lack of awareness by most of the team members. They might be overworked. And again, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. And I'm just going to repeat it because I think this equation, if there's one thing that you guys have your fulfillment team apply, time times effort equals outcome or expectation. It's the same thing. And if you guys can hammer that concept home with your team and then share that with clients, because one of the other things that does for clients is it takes them out of shame and guilt, right? It's like, oh, I didn't get to the goal in the timeline that I expected to. The clients get down. We all get down about that. But then it's like, okay, well, if I can look at, oh, you know what? My effort was half of what I thought it could be because of these other things. We don't need to make excuses, but at least it makes it more tangible.
You can take it to another level if you want. Another thing about the effort is effort changes between individuals. Because when we say effort, it's the perception of effort. It's not exertion.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand that difference. People might say, but this is so easy. Why are my clients not doing the work? It's easy for you, not for them. And that's the hard part. You need to understand the context the client is in to understand how they perceive the effort. And again, something that might be difficult at the beginning, over time it will feel easier. Like all of us, if you do work out, if you go to the gym, it was hard at the beginning. Or when you change exercises, it feels hard at the beginning. Yeah. Same thing for your clients. You need to understand the context. You need to understand any potential requirements they need to have in place, or any, previous knowledge that they need.
I think it's a really good point too about owners, right? Because one of the blind spots that so many owners have is like, well, I did this in this amount of time and it was pretty easy for me. Why can't my clients do it? Or, the 100% of the people who do the work get 100% of the results.
Which means 1% of your clients get results.
Yeah.
Basically.
And it's a massive blind spot. And a lot of owners get frustrated because, not everyone that we work with is a doer, but a lot of them tend to be doers. You give them a clear action plan, you support them, along the way, and they're doing it and they're hitting the outcomes and they're making it happen. But then they look at their clients and they're like, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, all they have to do is this.
And if you think about one client we were discussing, it's a great example. That specific business owner that worked with us, she's brilliant. She has been in this space for probably 10 years. She's an expert. The problem here was, as an expert, she was expecting every single client to be an expert. And I would say 80% of her clients were actually beginners. So as an expert, expecting someone that is a beginner to have the same capacity or even mental bandwidth or grit, all the necessary skills that are both psychological and also emotional, that takes time. If you think about the whole process, it's like, hey, you started 10 years ago. There was a whole identity shift. Your clients are not there yet. Yeah. So their perception of effort and their lack of clarity and their lack of certainty was creating a lot of those fires. And the way we fixed it was by making the system very, very easy and very, very simple. We actually didn't change the deliverables. We never touched them. Well, I'm actually lying. We added 2 simple videos to help with the onboarding and to help with the transition between 2 phases they have in the program. And those 2 videos were massive. And you might say, 2 videos and it changed the experience? Yes. When those videos were applicable at the right time, it changes the experience. And then the team that was doing the work with clients had 0 training on client psychology.
And that's something we haven't talked about yet, is the psychology piece, right? So, the way that we approach psychology, there's a few key components that we take teams through. And there's no mystery about it. We can share about that, but it's really like, first and foremost, how are you identifying your client personalities, right? And we use something, we call it the 4 archetypes. It's doers, controllers, followers, and warriors. And there's a certain way to communicate and support each of those types of clients to help them move forward, right? So that's a key piece. Who is it that I'm actually working with here? The second is buy-in. Is this person moving towards buyer's remorse, or are they fully bought into our system? And how do we, once we identify where they are, how do we coach and communicate with them? How do we have tough conversations? How do we not show up like a savior, you know, the drama triangle? So these are all pieces that we do with the team to really help them lead clients well, because we've trained people who have had years of working with clients. But when we look at things in this kind of systematic way, even those people go like, oh, you know what? I was kind of doing that intuitively. Like for me, that's something I do intuitively. But when I started to see you put this into real frameworks and stuff, it makes it much easier for me to apply and to be effective with clients.
And most of the times the business owners might even have an idea what we're talking about, but they don't have created that system for psychology.
Right.
Because it's basically applying a system first and then a system for psychology. And that allows these businesses to go to a proactive mode, which I think is what people want at the end of the day. If you're a business owner, if you have been scaling your business for a while and you're doing well, your acquisition is at least partially dialed in, you're tired of dealing with fires. That burns you out. And Ben, I think you can share a story with one of our clients that they're doing the same work, the same amount of work a week, but the type of fulfillment, personal fulfillment they got from going from reactive to proactive. Remember they share with you on a call, they're like, wow, it feels easier. It feels better because now I'm doing proactive work. I'm not doing reactive work, dealing with refunds, dealing with cancellations.
Yeah. So this was a team we worked with worked with them for 6 months. And I took them through the team psychology training. We call it Team Optimizer. And, within weeks, we had one of our follow-up meetings and they said, I asked them, I was like, guys, how's your bandwidth? We talked about efficiency a bit. And they said, it's really interesting. Since we've made some of these changes, we're doing the same hours of work, but our energy is way better. It feels like we're not putting out fires everywhere. And like, these are the changes we love to see, and I think the other point that
creates the efficiency.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight that because we're talking about two different teams, but the other team is the same. They got that efficiency because now they're being much more proactive.
Yeah. And, I think just the other point on having a way to train your team in psychology, it opens up your pool of hiring. Right? Because you don't have to look for the person who has 5 years of experience in the high ticket online space. If you have a great system and a structure around the psychology training, it just makes it easier. Like you can bring in different kinds of people to be client success managers, as an example.
If you look at the most successful business in the world, I'm not saying you don't need talent. You can hire great people. But if you rely solely on great people to have a successful business, it means that you need to work on your system. Because again, if you bring the right people for the right system, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. But if you really need great people or the system doesn't work, the system is broken. And I don't want to say you want to create a McDonald's business, but I think they have a great point of view in what regards to systems. Because anyone can run their system. And they're going to pay you when you bring new ideas to optimize the system, which I think is a really great approach, which is like, I know that the base of our business is a great system that delivers consistently. So let's incentivize our team members, our employees to bring new ideas to make the system even better.
Yeah. So, to give these guys something
actionable.
So we're talking systems and psychology, right? So of those two, we always work on the system first.
Always.
Right? So, what are maybe one or two things you could share with them, when it comes to like auditing their system and actually starting to upgrade that client experience?
So you talked about three things: the onboarding, the support, and the tracking.
Yeah.
If you want to audit and see where you are, for onboarding, I would look for how much time does it take for a client to be onboarded? It doesn't matter if it's group onboarding, one-on-one onboarding, video onboarding, that's for another time, but just look at the time between, or how long does it take between the sale and the onboarding? That's number one, because the faster, the better.
Yep.
Secondly, are we covering all what we need during the onboarding? Are we doing expectation management? Are we giving them clear action steps? Are we actually, like Ben said, I use the word certainty, but we can go further and say, are you gauging buy-in? Is that client bought in? Do we feel like the client is certain? If yes, amazing, you're doing a great job. Support, how your support is set up. Are you allowing your team members to do ongoing expectation management, like Ben said? Because that's something that doesn't happen once. It should be happening over and over and over again to make sure the clients are on track. You understand new expectations. You can resell them because you understand the new expectation. If you don't have a team in place, well, we'll have another podcast episode to cover how to set up that team and how to make it like the best investment you can make in your business. But just look at your support, and do you feel like you have the right support at the moment to ensure that the majority of your clients cross the finish line and that you're able to meet expectations? And then tracking, do you have tracking? Just start by thinking about that, because if you do have some tracking in place, you're already doing more than the majority. And if you do have some tracking in place, go one step beyond and think, okay, am I gauging buy-in? Am I tracking goals? Am I tracking progress? If you're doing those three things, you're going to do fine. Can you do better? For sure, but you already have something in place. If you have no tracking, that's something you need to work on immediately. Because if you don't have any tracking, your team members don't know how to track client progress. They won't be able to report back to you, and you cannot make changes in the system.
Yeah.
And then I think those three are going to cover the systems portion. On the psychology, helping your teams deal with different client archetypes. And you can use whatever frameworks. You can use our framework. And again, I'm not trying to sell anything here, but you have our book. We cover all the archetypes very in-depth in the book. You can learn how to deal with different client archetypes. And at scale, you're not going to get just one archetype. You get multiple archetypes. So your team needs to be ready to handle them. Understanding different archetypes, how to deal with them, how to gauge buy-in, and basically when things are not moving in the right direction, how to have tough conversations. Because I can tell you, most teams we've trained over the past 3 years and a half, they don't know how to have a tough conversation. So they see that the client is not doing well, but they're afraid of dealing with that tough conversation. And because the client then gets really, really disgruntled, when they have that conversation, it's already too late. Remember we talked about the 3 scenarios of clients not wanting the goal anymore? Yep. That's too late. And if we had that conversation probably 2, 3, 4 weeks before, they would have been able to reset expectations. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the biggest takeaways.
Yeah, awesome. All right, guys. So if you want to grab the book that Jay mentioned, it's called Customer Success Manifesto. You can go to ravingfanbook.com. And that's all we've got for you today. We'll see you next time.